Hello and welcome to the UCM podcast. I am super excited about getting into this stuff. But today it's going to be awesome. Before we get into the topic, though, I want to welcome Dr. Bill Davis to the podcast. Welcome our CEO and champion, Dr. Bill Davis.
I'm so excited to be with you, Tony. I love when we get to do these podcasts together. This is one of my favorite things to do is just talk about upper cervical practice growth. We love it. We both love it. We love helping doctors win. We love helping them grow. We love seeing them help more people in their communities. And so anytime we can provide this kind of value, it's tons of fun.
Absolutely. I just got a comment today from somebody who had called us up and was kind of picking our brains how we might team up. And hey, I haven't missed a podcast in 2 years, something like that. I was like, oh man, that's just so cool. And it's just rewarding just to let us know that people are listening and watching and implementing, and they're getting value out of it. And if you're doing that, if you're watching it right now or you're watching one of the replay, and this has been a benefit to you, hit us up. Just say, hey, thanks for doing the podcast, man. Or if you've got a topic you want us to tackle or something like that, a sticking point or FAQs you might have, then hit us up. We'd be happy to help. We're here to serve. We're here to like Bill was saying, we're here to create wins. And so
Absolutely.
speaking of
And
wins,
another
what are we? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and another way you can help us, like if you love this content, just like it, share it, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review if that's applicable where you're listening. That helps to just get more people to be exposed to this content, and we would appreciate that as well. So, but yeah, today's topic, we're going to be focusing in on the practice growth stages. This is something that we've touched upon over the past few years, but we're going to be dialing in and giving, we gave some more specific information and even labels to these different stages to really help you kind of decide, hey, is this me? Am I in this stage? Is this where I am? And then to say, all right, if I'm there and I want to go to the next stage, what do I need to do? What are those skills I need that will help me level up? Right. And so that's really what we're going to be focusing in on today. This is actually going to be a 2-part podcast. We're going to start with today's information, and then we'll do another one later on the kind of second half of the growth stages. So if you're watching the video of this, you'll see on the screen, there's 7 stages after you've launched a practice. And so we're going to be focusing in on the first 3 stages. And that is the Do Everything Doc, the Misaligned Doc, and the Trailblazing Doc, practice growth stage 1, 2, and 3. And then later we'll get into the stages 4 through 7 as in a different podcast. But let's get started, man. I'm excited. You ready, Tony?
Absolutely. Let's do this. I love getting into the wins, man. I want to see more docs in the stages 4, 5, and 6. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, those master stages. I mean, we wrote the book Upper Cervical Practice Mastery for a reason. We want everyone to be a master in their upper cervical practice and be getting that to that level. And so, but you got to start where you are and grow from where you are, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And so, if you're in that first stage, which we're calling the Do Everything Doc, practice growth stage 1. This is when you're an upper cervical specialist and you're doing just about everything in the practice. It could be someone who is brand new in practice, right? They just launched, they just got their, they just started last month, or it could be someone who has been in practice for a while, years, or even decades in some cases. A Do Everything Doc is someone who really, you don't really own a business, you kind of own your job. Right. And you're likely working more hours than you ever would have for someone else. And you're probably being paid less per hour than just about anyone. Right. You are the chief everything officer. The most important thing to focus on in this stage is really to be driven by your mission, hire and train your first CA so you can grow out of this stage and into the next stage. So to drive the practice forward, you got to learn how to make the most use of your time to create margins in your day, so you can start working on the practice instead of in it, right? So that's kind of a big overview of the practice growth stage 1, or that Do Everything Doc. Tony, what are some other things that you you see with these docs who are kind of in this place in that do everything doc stage?
Right. So I mean, it's a decently big spectrum because there could be a number of reasons why you're in this stage. Maybe it's just a matter of time. It's just you're so new that you haven't gotten there yet. You haven't grown enough. You haven't reached enough, online authority and that type of thing. Other times you might have some problems, some holes because of your mindset. It could be you could you could be having analysis paralysis because there's so many. Sometimes it can feel like there's so many things that you feel like you need to do that it's
Mm,
overwhelming. You're like, I don't know where to start. Or now you're spending all this time to try to do, I don't know, say videos or something, and you're just overthinking it. And it's a time sink when, you know what, a better use of your time at this stage is to focus on this. And so prioritizing can be hard. You could be feeling like you're spinning the wheels, overwhelmed, frustrated because like, shouldn't I be, here I am 3 years in. Why am I still here at this stage? What's going on? What am I missing? And
right.
sometimes you feel worn out. Some docs in this state, they're working a second job. I've
Yep.
talked to some docs, even recently. It's like you got the second job on the weekends or something, or you're on the day that you're closed in the practice because you're trying to pay the rent, and it's just you're divided. You're
Yeah.
divided, and there's a lack of focus on what matters most. Like you said, you only have so much time and energy, and you need to be focused on strategically on what matters most. It's the reason that for the correction, what matters most? C1.
Yeah.
C1
That's right.
matters most. Get that one right first.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think about that, the BJ Palmer quote, chiropractic is specific or it is nothing. Right. And so in the same way, there's a specificity to what you need to do in this stage to get to where you want to go, or go to the next stage where you're not a do everything doc anymore. Right. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming. We talk to docs in this stage sometimes who, they're seeing not very many patient visits per week, but they feel like they're overwhelmed, right? Like they don't have, they don't even, sometimes they don't even know why. Like, why am I so overwhelmed when I'm seeing, you know, 10 patient visits a week or 30 patient visits a week or even 50 patient visits a week? And it could be because they've taken on everything, right? They're the do everything doc. And so one of the things that we talk about in this stage is, what does it take to level up? And there's 4 things that we found that are really, really crucial for someone in the do everything doc stage to master, or to really focus in on and really help, to usually to get some help with, to begin to level up. And the first one is time management. It's taking control of your schedule so you can focus on what matters. Like Tony was saying, it's like if you're trying to focus on everything, then you're focusing on nothing. Your time is so valuable in this stage. And that do everything doc, sometimes you've listened to so many people that you don't know what to believe, and so you're just trying to do it all, right? You've heard from one person, hey, it's important to keep your overhead low, so you've decided, you know what, I'm not going to hire a CA. You've heard from someone else that this is important, so you're going to focus on that. You've heard from somebody else that this is important, and so it's just this constant battle internally on trying to find what the focus should be. And so understanding and mastering your time is so important, right, Tony?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Because if you don't have how are you gonna grow if you don't have the time and space? It's your bandwidth. You only have so much. And I've talked to other docs, like, you also got many of you are married, you got kids, and that's a huge factor. You're like, "Hey, practice is starting to grow. My marriage sucks right now." And so, like, you
Yeah,
gotta you gotta be able to, time blocking and all these different things that we talk about with the growth sessions, but just taking control of your schedule is a super important factor,
ab-
100%.
absolutely. And a big part of that is this next one, right? The next skill you need to level up, which is hiring, right? And so I'm going to tell you that if you've heard that you can do this all yourself, that you've been lied to. You're wrong. It's wrong. It's a wrong understanding of upper cervical practice. In an upper cervical practice, there are two jobs. Immediately when you open the doors, there is a job for answering the phone, interacting with new patients, interacting with people, taking money, scheduling, doing all those things. That's one job. And then there's the upper cervical specialist job. And the doctors that try to do both, it doesn't work well, right? And this is how it usually becomes. You hear of one person who figured out how to do this, and you think they figured out how to do this, and they're collecting whatever, and you say, wow, look at that person, they have no CA, and I want to be just like them. And you try to do what they do, and it doesn't work, right? And it's this idea of like, oh, I gotta be able to do it I gotta do everything and just handle it all, because hiring people is a pain, and I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want to have to manage people, and I don't want to do this. I just want to do my own thing. And what that ends up being is you are constantly stuck in these, first stage of practice growth, because you haven't mastered this basic skill of owning a business, which is hiring, finding people you can trust, and getting them on board with what you're trying to do, right?
Absolutely. Name a business that has one person working there, just the
Yeah.
owner. Like it's just it's you are the limiter then. Like immediately, you're like basically you've planned to cap your practice.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what's happening.
And I'll tell you.
Don't let
Yeah.
fear prevent you from hiring somebody. Well, gosh, it's the overhead, and they're going to need training, and then I got to give them accountable. Look, yeah, those are, yes, you're seeing ahead that those things need to happen. You need to train them right. You need to hold them accountable. You need to find the right person, all that stuff. But that doesn't mean you don't take that step. Like,
Yeah.
don't let that fear, stop you, impede that step.
And don't believe that technology is the
Replace
answer for for not having a personal touch. It's not, it's like the idea of like, okay, well, I'm going to I'm going to trust, AI, and I'm going to trust all these other things rather than people to interact with other people who are sick and suffering. No, it's not going to work. If you want to actually connect with a person, you need a person, right? That's how we are designed. That's how we are made. And so, yes, is it going to take time to pour into somebody and actually get them to be good? Yes. And that's part of your responsibility as a leader of any business, but of an upper cervical practice. You're a leader. You have to lead people. That's part of what you do. And so skills you need to level up when you're in that do everything doctor stage is hiring, finding people you can trust, getting them on board. And then the second part of it is delegation, which is really, it's the other part of hiring, right? Is understanding, okay, I'm going to hire somebody and then I'm going to train them, which is really what delegation is. It's training someone to do things that you really shouldn't be doing because you have other things to do that are more important because of your skill set, right? The things that they do are important as well, very, very important. But there's things that a CA can do that, yes, you could do it too, but they can't do what you do, right? They can't adjust patients. They can't take x-rays. They can't, in most places, they can't analyze films or CBCTs or whatever you're using. It's you've got to focus in on the things that you can do, those high leverage, high value activities, and delegate the other stuff to someone else. If not, you're going to be stuck in this do everything doc stage forever, right? You got to figure out hiring and delegation. It is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, delegation is absolutely huge.
So it's that mastering the art of letting go, getting back to growing your practice, right? As Tony said, you don't want to be what's stopping your practice from growing. All right,
the top real quick. The top practices have maximized the use of their time to the point where they've delegated just about everything that they that can be done by other people, meaning that they've maximized their time to where they're doing what matters most, hands-on patients, talking to patients, right? Adjusting.
Yep.
They're focused, like 99% of their time is focused on doing the things that only the doc can do. Like that's where you want to get to that point. Now you're not there yet. You're in the first stages here. I get that. But
That's
you
right.
need to be always looking of what can I delegate? What can I delegate? Because that maximizes growth. That's mission minded.
And that's why it's a skill that needs to be mastered, right? It's a skill that needs to be learned, cultivated, held accountable to, begin to grow in you, and will become more and more important as you go through the stages that are beyond the do everything doc stage. And then the last level, the last skill is the budgeting, right? So because in the do everything doc stage, which is, typically a doctor that's collecting less than $20,000 per month in collections, it's a tight budget, right? And so figuring out like, hey, all right, what do we need to spend money on? What do we not need to spend money on? Don't skimp on the things that matter, like growing the practice, like hiring someone, like, those types of things that are so crucial. But having a plan for your practice's money so you'll know where it's going before the month begins, rather than wondering where it went, right? So budgeting is really, really important at this level. It's, again, so many docs in the do everything doc stage, because they're so overwhelmed by all these other things, they a lot of times don't have any clue what's going on with their finances, right? It's like, I get money coming in and I just spend it. I don't even know, it's a very not clear. There's not a clear picture or a path when it comes to the money of the practice. So, Tony, if someone's in this do everything doc stage, how can we help them?
Well, there's a lot of things. The good news, the bad news is you're at this state. You're stuck maybe here. The good news is what I've seen is that any little changes that you strategically make, they produce returns quickly.
Yeah.
So that's the good news. It's like, hey, there's, a half dozen things on the top of my head that you could start doing today, that'll produce returns as you consistently do them. We even have some free resources on our website. If you go to the resources tab and you scroll down, we talked about delegating. Well, we have a stop doing list exercise where you can go over, okay, let's just actually jot down all the things I'm responsible for. Which things don't I need to be doing? If you're not sure how to hire people, we have a hiring resource kit on there as well with some resources for that. If you're not sure how to hold people accountable and train them up, then we've got a meeting resource kit. We can team up with you also with growth sessions where we're actually strategizing on what do we focus on, right? Like let's get into let's do an assessment of kind of where your life is at right now. It's called a life score assessment. We do something like that. Start there. What are your habits? What's your mindset? Are you the limiter right now? Is it your mindset? Is there a scarcity mindset in there? And let's identify these foundational things that may be preventing you from moving to the next step, right? Mission, vision, core values is another one, right? Daily habits, goal setting, having realistic goals, measurable goals, as we call SMART goals. If you guys are familiar with that term, really, honing that in, laser focused on that in these growth sessions. So we've got some free resources on our website. We've got the growth sessions where we really get, one-on-one and just like, okay, assess where you're at. Okay, now here's the top 3 things that we need to be working on right now, and let's do this together to get you to move to the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And the growth sessions to me is most doctors in the do everything doc stage, that is the best place for them to start, right? And the great thing is you can get an understanding of what this is all about by just scheduling a free practice growth strategy session. You can go right on the website, UCMPracticeGrowthSystems.com. You can click on the button that says start growing, right? Get something scheduled, meet with Tony, get an assessment. Where are you? What do you need? And he's going to give you either, hey, start with these free resources, or hey, here's the practice growth sessions. Here's what it looks like. It's very, low cost. It's the lowest cost thing you can pretty much do that's going to produce the most possible value for you. So do everything doc, growth sessions, 100%. That's the way you want to go. All right, moving into the next growth stage, which is the misaligned doc. So in this stage, you're constantly picking up the slack of others. You're filling in gaps. You're reacting to crises. You're a firefighter in training. The underlying problem is that you can't get your team on the same page and working in the same direction. So to level up the practice and keep growing, you got to learn how to align your team, give them purpose, clarify their roles. It's a big one. This stage involves identifying misalignments and correcting them, adding additional team members, and ends when you hire your first associate. Okay, so misaligned doc, practice growth stage 2. This is typically when you've gone past that $20,000 a month mark with your collections. You have a full-time CA. You're working towards hiring the first associate, right? So you could be anywhere from say 20 to 35 to beyond. It depends on the doc in collections. But this misaligned doc is, again, it's a matter of, you're not trying to do everything, but there's a lot of misalignments within the practice that need to be corrected, right, Tom?
Absolutely. And the helping docs to get to the point where the team is functioning properly is so important. It's like the engine in a car, right? That all the pistons are firing at the right pacing, right? And for that engine to, when things get out of whack, what happens? Your car just sounds weird. It doesn't have the same power it used to have. It's going to break down eventually. The wheels are going to come off, man. So in the same way, uh, you want to have some flow and functionality to your team, some cohesiveness, working together, having synergy going on there. It's back to being aligned, the opposite of misaligned. You want to bring your entire team into alignment, and alignment to what? What's the mission, your vision, your core values. It's the process, all of those things. And so that's what we want to do is get everybody pulling the right direction. And that's when you start to see some really cool things happen. And it creates a dynamic in the practice, which is cool. I can hear it on the phone calls when we have the call recordings. You can just hear the energy from the front desk person. We'll do our review calls, and the clients are saying, our clients, our doctors are saying, hey, this is so cool. People are wanting to give testimonials. We're celebrating these wins, and there's just an energy that happens when you're in alignment. So if you're feeling like there's disconnects, that's a symptom. That's a symptom of a problem, that there's a misalignment that needs to be corrected. Sound familiar?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I practice subluxations, man.
It is exactly. And so in this level, when you're in that misaligned doc stage, there's some skills again that you really need to focus in on, either with someone or trying to do it on your own, to try to figure out, like, okay, how can I most effectively focus on the skills that I need in order to level up. And the big one here is related to mission, vision, and values, right? The mission of the practice, defining the why so you can build a purpose-driven practice. So a lot of times when you're in the do everything doctor stage, it's, you're just trying to get through the day. You're trying to get, you're just trying to, keep the doors open, and you hopefully you've got somebody hired in that you're trusting, you're pouring into them a bit. But now it's really about, okay, we've got to define this why. We've got to be crystal clear on our mission. We've got to make sure that everybody that's on the team, if you have multiple CAs, that they're all in on the mission, right? And part of that too is that vision, casting the vision worth reaching to give your team purpose, right? Helping them to see, like, hey, this is where we're going. This is what it's all about. This is where where we're looking to take this practice. And then that core values, clarifying those values, determining how you and your team work together. This is huge when it comes to later stages, when you're really building a culture. Those values is the foundation of the culture, right? It's basically the idea of, what do we do here, right? What do we do? How do we do things? This is how we do things. That's what core values are. If you're a we, if you're part of we, whatever, your practice is a we, then this is what we do, right? And so mission, vision, values is so, so key at this level because a lot of the misalignments are related to this, right, Tony?
Absolutely. And I just want to jump in there too. While this is important for practice growth stage 2, it's even better. The people that I've worked from the beginning, saying, hey, like, how do I want to launch right? How do you help? And so I've worked with docs before they've even opened the doors.
Yep.
And so I go here because I know that we're setting the foundation for down the road. And now that you don't have to go back and go, well, what is our why? What is our mission? What are our values? Oh gosh, I already have a CA. Now I need to develop what they're supposed to be responsible for, the key
Yep.
result areas, key
Yep.
performance indicators. And so if you don't have that now, and you're listening to this or watching this, man, you got to get on this because that is huge. It's paramount. Otherwise, people will just be doing whatever they think is best rather
Exactly.
than
So,
what
yeah,
is best.
no, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you start right, which is what, we encourage doctors to do, if you start right with the mission, vision, and values, what typically happens is you go through the do everything doctor stage very quickly, right? You fly through that, right? And you're into this. But what we see when you're in the practice growth stage 2, when you're in that misaligned doc kind of phase, usually there's a mission, vision, values clarification that needs to happen. Either you've never even done anything with it, or it's not really a focus of the practice, right? It's something that, yeah, we did it once,
It's
right?
in the
But
business plan.
yeah, it's in the business plan, right? But it's not really what defines us
Yeah.
as a practice, right? And then this goes into the fourth skill you need to follow up when you're in this stage is role clarity. You mentioned it a little bit, Tony, but just breaking up with chaos, get those clearly defined roles and responsibilities, right? With KRAs and KPIs. How often is this an issue in this stage, Tony?
I would say probably less than 5% of doctors have defined roles. You think, when I say, let me qualify what I mean. I mean, on paper, it says this is what they're responsible for, and this is how, like, these are the main areas they're responsible for, and here's how we define wins in each of these areas. That's what I'm talking about, not just in general, like, hey, they need to answer phones. Well, it's
Right.
like, let's define what that
If
is.
you answered
What
your
is that?
phone, then you did your job.
Yeah, that's not, we don't lower the standard. We raise it up anyway. But clarifying the roles is super important because how do you hold somebody, to a standard if you've never really clearly set the standard? And a lot of times, like I said, they're going to drift towards what they think is right or what's easiest. Just let's be honest, they're human beings, and so defining those roles is so important. And so many doctors just by implementing the KRAs and KPIs, like right then and there, the feel of the office is different. You've defined the wins for the team, and if you've got a good team, like their heart's in it,
Yep.
and you've painted the picture. Here's your dartboard. Here's your bullseyes. Oh, cool. Well, now I'm gonna work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
I'm gonna if those are the wins, then I'm gonna focus more on that, and you're gonna be happier. They're gonna be happier. It's a win all the way around.
Absolutely. So role clarity. And then the last one here on the skills you need to level up is communication. You got to get used to repeating yourself. And I promise it'll change your team for the better if you consistently are talking about mission, vision, values, talking about role clarity, having those expectations, holding people accountable to those things. You have someone that has come alongside you to help you to be held accountable to holding your team accountable, right? So the more you communicate your mission, your vision, your values, the more your team can align behind it and continue to grow. These are the areas. These are the areas we see at this level. If you want to go from where you are to the next stage, which is that Trailblazer Doc, the one that has the associate in the practice that actually is winning, then you've got to get mission, vision, values, role clarity, and communication start to get dialed in, and then you can start to level up.
No, a lot of these things, like when a doc is, when you're in school and then you're, I don't know how much you're thinking about all this stuff, like
Right.
managing a team, how to hold team members accountable, how to define different roles in the practice, and like being strategic, maybe mission, of course, vision, maybe too, maybe some core values, but the role clarity, communication, that's not like that's the entrepreneur type stuff,
Yeah.
right? And just like, I just want to take care of patients. Well, okay, but there's still a role. I mean, there's plenty of good docs that have failing practices because they haven't been able to do these things, and they're
Yeah.
stuck. They're stuck, and it's not succeeding on the mission,
Yep.
of,
And
upper cervical.
and I'll tell you too, what sometimes happens in this stage when you are misaligned, when you're a misaligned doc, you'll go back to the do everything doc stage, right? You'll give up. You'll give up on the, you know what? This is too hard having team members. This is, oh, I had a bad experience with this person. I hired the wrong person. I didn't train them effectively. I didn't give them proper expectations and they failed. Big surprise, right? But it's,
Easier to do it myself.
yeah, I'm just going to do it myself, right? So you go
And
back to
I'll have a small manageable practice. I'll see 50 people a week, and if that, and it is what it is.
that's right. And that do everything doc stage it's a trap, because what you're going to do is you're going to go back to that. And you know what? Maybe you have more patients. Maybe you are collecting more than $20,000 per month, but you're doing everything and you're limiting your own growth again. And guess what? There's tons of people in your community that aren't going to get the help that they need, right? And then we've lost the whole point, right? The whole point of the practice is the mission, right? It's to grow upper cervical. It's to help more people in your community find hope and healing because they're sick and they're suffering and they need help, right? And so I encourage you, if you're in this stage, you're in that misaligned doc stage, don't go back. Don't go back to the do everything doc stage and think that that's going
Yeah,
to be
please
better.
reach
It's
out to us.
going to be better.
I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah,
Talk to me. I want to help,
yeah,
or at least point you
exactly.
in the right direction.
Yeah, and then so that's it. How can we help the misaligned doc? How can we help the doc that's in this stage? Like you said, 95% of the time they don't have role clarity. That's a huge one, right? And then sometimes they just give up and go back to the do everything doc. So talk through ways that we can help the misaligned doc in practice growth stage 2.
One of the biggest things at this point, is making sure that on that previous slide, that those things are dialed in. Like, you might need to go back and revisit the mission, vision, values, and just kind of make sure. And then once you've dialed that in, like, how do we, communicate that to patients and potential patients? How is that incorporated on our website? How are we communicating that in constant communication with our current patients, even, and helping our team members to get it? Like, you may know those things. Do your team members know that? Does your front desk person truly understand the mission that you guys are on? Do they know what the core values are? If not, then there's a disconnect. There's a misalignment there, 100%. And so that's some of the things that I'd encourage you to do, is go back over those foundational items. We talked about core values brainstorm. That's a free resource on our site. We talk about the defining your mission, those types of things. But then you really kind of need, usually this is the case, you need somebody from the outside looking in that can kind of do an assessment and go, okay, here's all your sticking points. This is one of the biggest ones that you want to tackle first. And and maybe it's let's work together to define that person's role. We need to define your CA's role. What are their key result areas? What are their key performance indicators? How do we determine their wins? And what are your goals? Sometimes there's no goals. It's just, I'm surprised how there's like, dude, how many consultations requests have you had? How many of those became scheduled? How many of those showed up? How many of those people moved into report of findings? How many people started care? How many people moved into wellness? Like, if you don't know the transition of those numbers and the percentages, then you are doing yourself a disservice. Otherwise, you're just going off what I feel like we do a good job.
Right.
Oh man, holy cow! Like, metrics, man, numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. So, sorry, I'm going to get on a soapbox here, but the key is to bring somebody else in. The growth sessions are it, man. Just where we can sit down and let's strategically look at each little area one by one, get it up to where it needs to be, get those systems in place. Because when you have systems that work for you, that's where the growth just naturally happens. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say also, it's in this stage, along with the growth sessions, sometimes it's a new patient problem, right? Sometimes you need more new patients, right? Maybe that is the key to taking you from where you are to where you want to go next, and that's where we start looking at, okay, is there a full system, a practice growth system that's going to
Right.
help
Right.
these docs as well?
Yeah.
But and sometimes it's a combination of both. You need some practice growth sessions with the system to really maximize and get you to where you want to go. And so
It,
again, it's getting that initial assessment. If you're in the misaligned doc stage, you're in that, $20 to $35,000 a month, or maybe a little bit more in collections. Go over to practice to UCM grab the free practice growth strategy session there. You can, hit that start growing button, schedule that, and find out more about how we can help you. All right, moving into practice growth stage 3. This is the Trailblazing Doc. This is the doc who, your practice has got some good traction. You find yourself, you're still reacting to problems a bit. You're, instead of focusing on the big picture, but this is typically a doc who has one associate in the practice, and they're building, right. It's they're blazing that trail. They're making a difference in the community. They're seeing an impact. It's time to decide where you want your practice to go, right. It's okay. So yes, I'm seeing patients, my associate's seeing patients, we have a good team in place. Where are we going next, right? And a lot of times this becomes developing a leadership team, right? Developing a leadership team. So which means that you may take one of your CAs who are really good, and promote them to an office manager, a new patient coordinator kind of role, where they're really taking ownership of the training of other CAs, and really taking ownership of the lead conversion and new patient conversion into care plans, like those types of really crucial tasks, right? This stage requires also building up your associate, right? Taking your associate, if this is a associate you see being with you long term, be pouring into them, raising them up to that leadership team level, so that you're when you get to, because the goal of this stage really to progress to the growth stage 4, which is the associate master, is to hire a second associate, right? To go from you and an associate to a second associate. So when you solidify your systems, you get that office manager in place, you empower your associate to become that senior associate, then you can hire that first junior associate. And typically, this, again, collections, it's going to be somewhere between $35,000 and $70,000 a month in monthly collections. And when you get around that $70,000 a month, that's usually when you can hire that third doctor or that second associate. And so, Trailblazing Doc, what other things do you see with this group, Tony?
well, I mean, usually mission's not the problem, like they've grown thus far, and they see the value of it. A lot of times people can get stuck. Maybe they had some associate issues, or maybe the associate left. It was amicable, like they went off to start their own practice, and which leaves you kind of with a hole, or you have a CA that left, and that it's like you get these setbacks, right? And some of you
Yep.
listening right now watch this are like, oh yeah, we've had these setbacks. Well, it opens up for another team member. Let's get another person. Let's get them hired and get them in here. So sometimes it's that type of stuff. And um, back to the communication again, though, with the team, the better you can communicate and rally people around this thing, hold people accountable to the defined roles that you've already specified. That is such a huge factor, right? A lot of times there can be maybe some communication issues there. Sometimes if you've been around a while, you start to let your foot off the gas,
Yep.
and as a doc, you kind of get in the mode of the same old, and so you stalled out in this stage, and it's time to go back and really look at why are we doing this? Why aren't we growing? What do we have to do? And that's okay. Everybody's got seasons.
Exactly. And so, at this stage, Trailblazing Doc, they're in that growth stage 3. The skills you really need to level up this at this stage become their higher level skills, right? They're skills that, that there's a book that I read a long time ago. What got you here won't get you there, right? What got you here, what got you to this point of, you have an associate, you have a practice, you're helping lots of people. If you want to help more people, then what got you here won't get you there. You've got to start thinking a little bit differently. You got to start learning some new things. And one of them is strategic planning, right? Really figuring out, okay, outlining where is your business going, right?
Yeah.
What is it going to take to get there? So this can be implementing quarterly planning meetings, implementing annual planning meetings, starting to really think ahead on, okay, so when we get to this level, when we're seeing this many patient visits, when our collections are at this level, this is when we need to bring on this person. This is when we need to hire this additional CA. This is when we need to define this new role. This is when we need to bring on the associate, right? Having that strategic planning mindset, that having that skill becomes really, really important at this level, at that Trailblazing Doc level. You got to get this dialed in. Another one of those skills is the leadership development, right? Making sure that you're scheduling regular meetings with your leadership team. These are it's one-on-one meetings. If you've identified one of your CAs is really a rock star and they're doing an incredible job, then make sure you're pouring into that person. Make sure you're having them read books, you're helping them learn, you're helping them to develop as a leader so that you can help them to eventually, you're going to be able to delegate training to them. You're going to be able to delegate different things to them. And this is also when, we recommend making sure you're implementing things like weekly level 10 meetings or weekly staff meetings. If you haven't already been doing this, then it becomes more and more important. And sometimes it's you've been doing them, but you haven't been doing them well, right? And so making sure that you're really doing them and doing them well. I know Tony wants to say more about that. And then the other thing is culture, right? So we've talked about mission, vision, values at the last stage, but now it's becoming it's a culture. You've got more people, right? You've got a bigger team. It's not just you and one CA, right? So having a company culture where all the team members, all of them are looking forward to Mondays and they have that self-employed mentality. They have that I'm all in on our mission. We're working together. I'm all in on our team. I love our team. I love our patients. I love this community. And man, we're working together. We have this awesome culture. So talk more about this, Tony, the Trailblazing Doc stage and skills they need.
Okay. I have this story that just popped into my brain here in the moment. So when my sons were younger, they still play, but they would build their device, right? They've got the instructions there. They're building them. They're putting all the pieces together. My youngest would come up to me and he'd say, "Look, Dad, I made it." And he'd hold it up and like the arm would fall off, the wing would fall off, and then he puts it back on and he hands it to me. And what he would do is he'd have the pieces in place, mostly in the right place, not always, but they weren't like fully pressed down. If you guys have had kids and like they're just like sitting there, they're not really like formed properly. And I'd go through, it's not stable, it falls apart, and you start to play with it and move it around, and things it falls apart. And he hands it to me and I'm able to look at the instructions. Okay, these are all in the right place. Let's really make sure it's firmly fitted together. And then now we can go play with this thing and the wheel, the stuff doesn't fall apart. And it just occurred to me, like, that's kind of the way this stage is. You've got a lot of right things in place and they're working pretty well. But for some reason, you hit a hole, you have a pitfall that happens here and there. Something falls apart. Something just you hit a wall and it's like, what's
Yep.
going on? Or you've been hitting a wall and it's like, so sometimes it's just about going back and really, like you said earlier, we do meetings. Okay, well, are you doing them well? Are you doing them as efficiently as possible? Is there a meeting you could just scrap because it's not productive? You know me, Bill, I don't like meetings,
Yeah,
but okay, I don't like meetings that aren't productive.
that's right.
I like meetings that are productive.
Mm-hmm.
And are fast. I like those two. But because we all that to say is, are you doing them well, right? So it's
That's right.
about tightening up everything so it functions the way it's supposed to, the way you wanted it to. So are you doing the meetings well? Are you holding people accountable? Are there scheduled one-on-one meetings to hold? Are you doing a biannual review of your team so that you give them feedback on this? Are you using a job scorecard for them to track them on a monthly basis, and then do every 6 months or a year, doing a review for them and giving them that feedback, just like you do for your patients, do
Yeah.
that for your team members. And so that way it's getting better and better and better at what you're doing. Heck, looking at your day 1, day 2. How do we condense those things? How do we be effective? Do we have a referral system where we strategically know when the best times are to ask for referrals? Ooh, what are those times? I know what they are. Talk to me about it. Okay, so like, with the trust is a 10 out of 10. I know when those are, and if you're doing our growth sessions, you know what those are too. But that's really what it is. Like if you're in this phase, your things are going. The pieces are in place. It's just about tightening them up.
That's it. That's it. So these are the skills you need to level up. And when you're in this Trailblazing Doc stage, there is definitely some help we can provide for you as well. And so, what are some of those things that we can do to help a doc? One of the things that I just thought of that you mentioned, and it's a free resource on our website, is our meeting resource kit. Right? Again, it's just a simple resource, but an awesome one. Make a huge difference in your meetings, right? To really have a good format and agenda for your weekly staff meetings or your team meetings, and having a one-on-one format, and having a quarterly planning meeting format and an annual planning meeting that's all in there. We already have, we have that in that free kit, right? What a difference it could make. But what else can we do? How else can we help the Trailblazing Doc continue to advance in their practice?
It's about those clear systems, right? Everything we've talked about so far, going it back and tightening those things up, or implementing if you haven't really done it. Like, go back and look at it. What you've done so far won't get you where you're trying to go. Okay, so let's tighten things up and let's take away and add as needed. But then also, like, our gold plan for marketing is just because it's so systematized, it's not going to create extra load on your team per se. It's going to implement this new patient system, content creation system, patient communication system, support for custom events, even that you're going to do locally, like patient appreciation days and stuff like that. Where we become like your marketing arm, like your design team arm, which is a huge win. So it doesn't create more work for your team. You come up with the idea, we help you promote it. So there's that. So there's just so much that you can do to have a system in place for consistent, qualified new patients. And so I would like a marketing system is just a big win in that area. In addition to looking at all of these other areas we've discussed thus far. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this stage, it's either a combination of practice growth sessions with one of with our gold plan, for instance, or the platinum plan, which includes the growth sessions. So it's really assessing it and kind of seeing where you are, because there's a big range here from 35 to 70K in collections, and what practices look like in this practice growth stage 3. So it's, again, best thing you can do, just go over to the website. Just go to UCMPracticeGrowthSystems.com. Get the free practice growth strategy session. It's a no-brainer, right? Get that. Get the assessment. You can really talk it through with Tony. Understand where you are, what stage you're in, what is best for you in that stage to go from where you are to where you want to go. So appreciate Tony. I appreciate being on the podcast again. I appreciate you being here with me as always. And as we always say here at UCM, go team upper cervical.